Born Lev Bronstein in 1879, Leon Trotsky emerged as a Marxist thinker and a leading architect of the Russian Revolution of 1917. Alongside Lenin, he was instrumental in overthrowing the provisional government and establishing Bolshevik control. As the founder and commander of the Red Army, Trotsky played a crucial role in securing victory for the Bolsheviks during the Russian Civil War. However, his rivalry with Stalin led to his expulsion from the Communist Party and his eventual exile. Trotsky spent his final years in Mexico City, where he continued to write and advocate for international socialism until his death in 1940.
Emily, where are we right now?
We're at Leon Trotsky's house in Mexico City.
Yeah, it's a whole beautiful compound with many lovely flower walls behind us. Emily, history pop quiz time. What do you know about Leon Trotsky?
Well, he was a communist.
Uh-huh.
He was from Russia.
Uh-huh.
Was he not from Russia? Yeah. He was from the Russian Empire.
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, and he was, I always learn about him as like the third. It's like Lenin, Stalin, Trotsky. They were like the three of the leaders of the Russian Bolshevik Revolution. And then I just know that when Lenin dies, Stalin does some stuff. And Trotsky ends up in Mexico City. And then I just know that he dies here.
Here, in this exact place.
And he's the guy with the glasses.
Yes, and also has an impressive mustache or facial hair.
Good facial hair.
Small glasses.
Small glasses. That's what I know.
Leon Trotsky, more like
Leon Trotsky.
So, Leon Trotsky was born in modern-day Ukraine. So you're right that he's within the Russian
Oh
Empire.
yeah, but very controversial right now for me to say he was born in Russia.
Yes.
Right.
Russian Empire.
Right.
At the time. He was also born into a wealthy Jewish family, and his name is Lev Bernstein, which I was shocked by. I just had no idea.
Oh.
He became very into Marxist ideology, and when he was 19, was exiled for the first time to Siberia.
Because of his Marxist ideology,
Yes.
not because of his Jewish heritage.
Correct.
Why is the Soviet symbol a hammer and sickle? Wrong answers only.
So they can hit the nail on the head with their communist ideology as much as they want, and because they'll take care of you when you get sick. It's actually like industrial workers and farmers united.
19 years old, exiled to Siberia for the first time.
Okay.
Ends up escaping, comes back to Russia in 1905. Emily, what happened in Russia in 1905?
It's Bloody Sunday, right?
That is an event that happened in Russia in 1905.
Okay. So 1905 is like, I think it was like the first wave of the revolution.
Yes.
There are Russians who march on the Winter Palace and they're like, the Tsar just must not know how tough our life is. And then, I don't even think he's at the palace, but his men fire into the crowd.
Yep.
That's known as Bloody Sunday,
Yes.
right? And so this is one of the big, like, it's an impetus for the growing revolutionary movement in Russia.
Yes. And
Right.
then what other major event is the other huge impetus?
World War I is the other impetus.
Exacerbates all of the problems that have happened in Russia for like the last decade.
Yes.
So he, after the 1905 revolution, helps organize that, leaves again, is exiled again, comes back in 1917 in February.
And that's around when Lenin is, same thing's happening to Lenin. Lenin is growing as a Marxist, he keeps getting exiled.
Yep.
And then I think during World War I, the Germans actually help him get back into Russia.
Yes.
Because they're like, hey, go stir some things up.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So Trotsky arrives back in Russia in 1917, helps lead that first revolution in February.
Yes.
And do you know anything about that Russian Revolution?
Yes, I know that is not a communist revolution.
Correct.
That was like a popular revolution to get rid of the Tsar, not
Yes.
kill the Tsar. They like imprisoned him and his family, and they're going to try to create maybe some new government. But then there's debate over what that government should look like, and that's where, and whether Russia's going to leave the war or not. And so that's where Lenin and his group, the Bolsheviks, rise and kind of have another revolution later in the year.
Yes. So 1917, February Revolution happens. Tsar Nicholas II abdicates from the throne, offers it to his brother. His brother's like, I'm not going to deal with any of this stuff. And then there's no more monarchy. There's no more tsarists in Russia for the first time in like 500 years. So then a provisional government is set up between February and that second revolution in October that is led by this military commander named General Alexander Kerensky. And
I forgot his name.
and it does not go very well, like you said. So during that time, Lenin and his Bolsheviks gain more power and then come back and actually overthrow that provisional government. And that's when Lenin steps in and ultimately will create the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. But that happens later on.
Great.
What do you call it when he's doing winter sports down a mountain, but just casually, kind of slow? It's a Trotsky.
So Trotsky organizes the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which is very cool. Russia leaves the war. Russia then plunges into its own civil war.
Right. The Reds versus the Whites.
Right. What side was the red on?
The Reds are communists.
Nice.
And then the Whites are like the royalists or the supporters of the provisional government that's not communist. organized.
Yes, also whites were supported by outside forces like the US and Britain.
Yeah, I know that there were some soldiers who, like, when World War I ended, people were like, great, where are these soldiers? And they're like, we're not sure. They'll come home 6 months later. And then they couldn't talk about it, but turns out some of them had ended up weirdly in parts of Russia to maybe like support this civil war that Woodrow Wilson totally said we're going to stay out of it because self-determination.
Yes, exactly. So that war ends, I think, December 1921. And in 1922, really early on, the USSR is officially established. But 1924, Lenin dies.
Right.
So, like you mentioned earlier, there are the three people involved in the Russian revolutions, Lenin, Trotsky, and Stalin.
Mm-hmm.
Stalin's going to use this power vacuum to try to seize all power for himself.
Can I ask you, my interpretation was Stalin was like brutal enforcer and Trotsky was the book nerd.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's actually very correct.
Okay.
So Stalin comes into power. Trotsky's like immediately worried. Trotsky is exiled again from Russia, spends actually a bunch of time bouncing around Europe, and then ultimately in the 1930s makes his way to Mexico City.
And that's because he's a threat to Stalin's power.
Yes. Okay. So 1930, moves here. Well, it doesn't move here originally. Moves here to hang out with Frida Kahlo because they have a love affair together.
And this is, I think, while Frida Kahlo is married to Diego Rivera.
And Trotsky is still married to Natalia, who he has been married to his whole life. Oh, it's like since he was like 20. So, and he stays married to her too. Just like Frida stays married to Diego.
She comes with him to Mexico?
Yes.
Oh.
So the Frida Kahlo house is just a couple blocks south of where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he ends up getting this place just north of her. She's also a little commie, little socialist.
Wow.
So they plan some meetings together. But then this is where he ultimately ends up. And this is where he is ultimately, spoiler alert, murdered. Okay, so when Stalin came into power, exiled Trotsky fled around, ended up in Mexico City. Then it was Stalin's mission to make sure that he was erasing Trotsky from any of the history books. Emily, why would he do that?
Because Stalin wants to be the main guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So keep Lenin, you gotta keep Lenin, vanguard of the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
But Stalin then made sure that he went through all of Trotsky's living descendants and other people associated with the revolution and had all of them murdered.
His
Every
living
single one of them.
descendants too? Oh my god.
So when Stalin came to power, removed Trotsky, there are all of these steps that he took to literally erase him from history textbooks. Like not only the words that he said or who he was as a person, but actually you can go through and see like how images were photoshopped. So that's why we don't have a ton of pictures of Trotsky left today, because
Wow.
Stalin went through such a deep process of trying to literally rewrite history that does not include him.
So can you tell us, like, who killed him?
So this place was attacked multiple times because people wanted to obviously murder Trotsky. And he had guards stationed at it and like remove some windows because the attacks kept coming in. So he was ultimately assassinated by one of these officers who came in with an ice axe. And if you think about an ice axe, it has like the axe part and it has the adze part, the flat part on the backside. So he was struck in the head with the back of it, so with the adze of the ice axe. Did not die immediately, went to a hospital for like 2 or 3 days, and then died in the hospital. So something that I think of when I think of Lenin, Stalin, and Trotsky is I think of, and the fact that like Trotsky was kind of erased from that history for a lot of it, I think of Che, Fidel, and Cienfuegos. Because Cienfuegos is the oft-forgotten Cuban revolutionary.
Yeah. It seems like that happens a lot of times in any sort of triumvirate. When there's a group of three, there's always like the big man that wins out. There's like kind of the original guy who gets left behind, and then there's the one who's forgotten.
Yes.
Caesar, Pompey, Crassus. What I'm saying is Caesar is Stalin, Pompey is Lenin, and Crassus is Trotsky.
That's fair. That's a really great analogy.